in the movies?
Actually, it was a kind of an odd thing. Harrison Ford before he did Star Wars, I had just finished Rocky and something like that, yes. And I was going up for an audition. They said, oh, there's this thing, it's about a space vehicle, Star Wars. So I go in there and I see George Lucas and the producer, and I can tell instantly, you know, when no one likes you. They look like this.
In the unforgiving landscape of Hollywood, where physical perfection and eloquent delivery often determine success, one man turned a devastating birth injury into his greatest asset. Sylvester Stallone's journey from a traumatic forceps delivery that permanently altered his facial features to becoming one of cinema's most recognizable action heroes represents one of entertainment's most compelling transformation stories. The fateful day in Hell's Kitchen. July 6, 1946, marked what should have been a routine birth in Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, but the events that unfolded in these critical moments forever altered the trajectory of cinema history. Jackie Stallone, a spirited woman who worked as a cigarette girl at Billy Rose's Diamond Horseshoe nightclub in the theater district, had continued her demanding job even while 9 months pregnant. The Diamond Horseshoe was one of New York's most opulent entertainment venues, where showgirls performed elaborate reviews for celebrities and dignitaries alike, creating an atmosphere of glamour that stood in stark contrast to the harsh realities faced by working-class families like the Stallones. Despite being heavily pregnant, Jackie maintained her routine of riding public buses throughout the city, a decision that proved pivotal when she suddenly went into labor during one of these trips. A compassionate stranger helped her off the bus and rushed her to the nearest medical facility available to someone of her economic circumstances, a charity ward hospital that provided free medical care to low-income patients. These charity wards, common in mid-20th century America, served as the medical safety net for families who couldn't afford private health care. But they often operated with limited resources and overworked staff. Complications during labor forced the attending obstetricians to employ forceps, a medical instrument designed to assist difficult births by grasping the infant's head. However, in what can only be described as a catastrophic medical error, the doctors misused not one but two pairs of forceps, applying excessive pressure that accidentally severed a crucial facial nerve. This nerve damage resulted in immediate and permanent paralysis, affecting the lower left side of Stallone's face, including portions of his lip, tongue, and chin. The medical reality behind the injury. The specific type of injury Stallone sustained is medically known as facial nerve palsy due to birth trauma, a condition that occurs when the seventh cranial nerve becomes damaged during delivery. Unlike Bell's palsy, which can develop later in life and often resolves within months, Stallone's condition resulted from permanent physical damage to the nerve structure itself, making recovery impossible. The forceps delivery complications created what medical professionals classify as a peripheral facial paralysis, specifically affecting the branch of the facial nerve responsible for controlling the muscles around the mouth and lower face. Medical literature reveals that forceps injuries of this nature occur when excessive pressure is applied to the temporal region of an infant's skull, where the facial nerve exits through the stylomastoid foramen. In newborns, this area is particularly vulnerable because the mastoid tip has not yet fully developed, leaving the facial nerve positioned just beneath the skin surface. The trauma from the forceps compressed the nerve against the underlying bone structure, causing immediate and irreversible damage to the nerve fibers responsible for facial muscle control. The immediate consequences of the injury were profound and multifaceted. Stallone's facial asymmetry became apparent the moment he drew his first breath, with the left side of his face displaying the characteristic drooping associated with facial nerve damage. His ability to form certain facial expressions was compromised, creating the distinct snarling appearance that later became his trademark. And most significantly, the nerve damage affected his speech patterns, as the paralyzed muscles could not properly coordinate with the tongue and lip movements necessary for clear articulation. A childhood marked by adversity. The facial paralysis immediately set Stallone apart from his peers, marking the beginning of what would become years of social isolation and psychological challenges. His distinctive appearance and speech impediment made him an easy target for childhood bullying, with classmates mocking his slurred pronunciation and asymmetrical facial expressions. The psychological impact of this constant ridicule was compounded by well-meaning but misguided adults who mistook his speech difficulties for cognitive impairment. Educational institutions of the era were poorly equipped to understand or accommodate students with speech disabilities, leading to a cascade of academic and behavioral problems. Stallone's frustration with being misunderstood manifested in aggressive behavior, frequent fights, and chronic absenteeism. His academic struggles were so severe that a guidance counselor once advised his mother he was suited only for menial labor, suggesting he might find work operating sorting machines or as an elevator assistant. The family dynamics surrounding Stallone's early years added additional layers of complexity to his already challenging circumstances. His parents, Frank Stallone Sr. and Jackie Stallone, maintained a tumultuous relationship marked by frequent arguments and eventual separation. Frank Sr., an Italian immigrant who had established a successful chain of beauty salons in the Washington, D.C. area, struggled with the demands of fatherhood while building his business empire. Jackie, meanwhile, was developing her own career as an astrologer and fitness entrepreneur, eventually opening a women's gymnasium called Barbella's. From outcast to inspiration. Rather than allowing these challenges to defeat him, Stallone began channeling his pain and frustration into physical transformation and creative expression. The constant bullying and social rejection drove him toward bodybuilding as both a form of self-protection and a means of regaining control over his body. He discovered that physical strength could compensate for social vulnerabilities, and the discipline required for consistent training provided a structured outlet for his emotional turmoil. His interest in performing and storytelling emerged during his teenage years, partly as a response to being voted most likely to end up in the electric chair by his high school peers. This darkly prophetic assessment served as a wake-up call, motivating him to prove that his potential extended far beyond the limitations others had assigned to him. Drama classes and amateur theatrical performances became vehicles for exploring characters who shared his sense of being misunderstood and underestimated. The transition from troubled teenager to aspiring performer was neither smooth nor immediate. Stallone's unconventional appearance initially worked against him in traditional casting situations, as directors and producers struggled to envision roles for someone with his distinctive features. His slurred speech, while authentic and emotionally resonant, did not fit the polished delivery expected from leading men of the era. The Rocky Revolution.
I was born in a place called Hell's Kitchen, New York. We tend to make our memories nicer than they were. I had a rough time, but it was worth it. I'm not complaining about it. It only takes a minute, girl, to fall in love.
The transformation of Stallone's perceived disabilities into career advantages reached its culmination with the creation of Rocky Balboa, a character whose authenticity stemmed directly from the writer's personal experiences with being underestimated and overlooked. The inspiration for Rocky emerged during a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner on March 24, 1975. When Stallone witnessed the unknown fighter's brief but valiant stand against the heavyweight champion. In that moment of unexpected resilience, he recognized a metaphor for his own journey and began immediately crafting what would become his masterpiece. The triumph of authenticity.
Can Sylvester Stallone ride a horse?
Yeah, that's one thing I can do. I started out riding very, very early and riding very cantankerous horses. Because my father used to buy horses like for $35, $40. So I learned to ride on that. At one time I wanted to be a professional equestrian. That was my goal.
The success of Rocky validated not only Stallone's artistic vision, but also demonstrated the power of embracing rather than concealing one's differences. His facial paralysis and speech patterns, which had once been sources of professional rejection, became defining characteristics that audiences found compelling and relatable. The slight slur in his delivery conveyed vulnerability and humanity that polished theatrical speech could never achieve, while his asymmetrical expressions suggested both toughness and sensitivity. Rocky's cultural impact extended far beyond box office success, earning 10 Academy Award nominations and winning 3, including Best Picture. The film's themes of perseverance against overwhelming odds resonated globally, establishing Stallone as more than just an actor, but as an embodiment of the American dream. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite Sylvester Stallone role? Let us know in the comments section below.